Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Brian Johnson, and I am the director of the Frederick Douglass Institute at Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania. We're so excited to be here today as a part of our social justice teach-in. The Frederick Douglass Institutes are a collaborative across the state of Pennsylvania. There are 14 state institutions in Pennsylvania, and our goal is to engage critical dialogue on university campuses about diversity, about social justice. We're named after the freedom fighter and orator Frederick Douglass. The idea is part of what we're trying to do this week. This is the anniversary of the 170th anniversary of the first publication of the narrative of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. And so this is our way of connecting our history to today. Frederick Douglass's narrative, while written in 1845, certainly could have been written in 2015. There's so many parallels between what we're seeing in our schools, what we're seeing in our communities, what we're seeing in our world today. And so we want to do justice to Douglass's work. So across the state of Pennsylvania, we are having a teach-in of sorts this week where faculty and staff on our campuses are hosting various events or various things related to their curriculum that are meant to bring address to whether it's going to be about social justice writ large, or we're talking about Ferguson, we're talking about the connections between the 1845 narrative. For instance, I teach a course called Make Me Laugh, and my course is studies stand-up comedy. And its role in history. One of the things that we're going to be questioning this week is what about Ferguson jokes? Because we have seen over the course of the last few months, once we've moved a little bit farther away from the incidents of last summer, that comedians have been taking their liberties. And so in my classroom, we're going to be dealing with that this week. You know, how much is too much? You know, how much is appropriate and what is not appropriate? I think it's interesting. Comedians get to say things that ordinary citizens don't. And in what ways is that an effective tool or technique, and what does that do? So across the state of Pennsylvania, and even in some high schools, we're going to be questioning a lot of things related to social justice. So this kickoff event for us is all about connecting a sense of history to a sense of today, a sense of contemporary attitudes. And we're so excited that you are all here. We know that there are many that are watching us via live feed, and we're thankful to have all of you. We hope you enjoy this conversation. I do want to make mention that this is an interactive webinar. And so for those of you that are watching us via technology, you can tweet us your questions. We want to hear from you what your questions for our panelists are. We have two panels today, one made up of students and one made up of adults and teachers and police officers that you are going to want to hear from. And so if you have questions, we want you to tweet at KU_FDI. That's at KU_FDI. And our staff will be relaying questions to us. We're so thankful that you are with us, and we hope you engage with us throughout today's program. Let me introduce my first panel, which are students from across the country. We have some students with us who are going to share their thoughts and their heart today with you. And I should have been on the right page, but I wasn't. So we'll start all the way down at my left. We have Mr. Brian Kondracki. He is a senior at Kutztown University, majoring in social studies education, future teacher. Thank you so much for being here, Brian. Next to him is Caleb Lewis, who is an 11th grader at the Little Rock Central High School. You might remember Little Rock from the 1950s. Yes, this is the same Little Rock High School. We have next to him Mr. William Fells, who is a senior at Ridgeway Christian in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And then the next two students are Ileana Lopez, who is a senior at I-Lead Charter School in Reading, Pennsylvania. And next to her is Tatiana Baptiste, also a senior at I-Lead Charter School in Reading, Pennsylvania. Students, thank you so much for being here. Part of what these students are engaged in, they are part of what is called a moving classroom. These students have been traveling together over the past few days, starting in Washington, D.C., and making a journey over here to Montgomery, Alabama. All along the way, they've been stopping at various sites, learning from history. The theme of the moving classroom is look back to to move forward. And so these students have been engaged with the idea of understanding history in a contemporary context. And so they have been going through several speakers. They have taken some of the same journeys that some of our civil rights marchers have taken over the course of our history. And so they're learning a lot. And so we want to hear from them about what they're learning. So the first question I'm going to ask all of you to answer is, what are you learning as you've done this journey? What's standing out for you? What's making a difference as you have looked, as you've participated? What are the one lesson that has surprised you? So tell us about your journey along the way. So let's start down with Brian.
So I've been asked this question, I feel like every single day since I've been here. And every single day I'm just baffled. I can't even find the words to all that I'm experiencing. And to explain what I'm learning, I'm learning about the history. I'm learning about what people went through. But to be actually taking part of it, it's real hard for me to explain. And I found it in myself hard for me to control my emotions at a lot of times. So, but what I've learned history-wise, I've learned a lot about African-American history in Selma, Montgomery, just the struggle and the compassion that the people have for one another. As I said, unexplainable. But I learned a lot about myself too. I'm learning a lot about my own determination. Just so much. That's just a loaded question for me to answer. I really have to continue to reflect on it to really understand all that I'm learning. So.
Just like Brian, this trip has been very emotional for me. I've had the opportunity to sit down with various elders and listen to their story, and it has made me sit back and reflect on my life and where I'm going. And we visited Petersburg, Pennsylvania. Petersburg, South Carolina.
Interrupt you for a second. We're getting notice that they can't hear you all, so get closer to the microphone. Just bring the mic closer.
Okay.
And speak up, even though we have a microphone.
Okay. Like I was saying, I had the opportunity to speak with my elders, and listening to their stories made me reflect on my life and where I'm going. And also, we learned about the United States colored troops who fought in the Civil War and the contributions they made to the Union's success. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just learning. Well, when you look at historical events and you read your history books, such as when you study how America was first conceived in the days of George Washington, it really just seems like those are just bygone eras, and it seems like they're just so far away in what's actually happened. I mean, it's important, but it doesn't seem like it was just yesterday. But when we talk about the civil rights movement, and we've been going to all these different locations, it's still extremely relevant. And we see all these houses which are embedded in our neighborhoods. We see, we get to listen to people who are actually involved in the civil rights movement. So to me, when we talk about civil rights history, it's not history in the sense that it happened such a long time ago. And I think that's what I've basically just been learning on this moving classroom, that it was just yesterday and it is still relevant today. So that's been very impactful for me.
Well, what I've been learning throughout this whole journey is that they all were like, we started getting really close together, and I wasn't really taught about this. I just really, during this whole journey, I've been learning about it, and it's really, how do I say it? Inspiring how they all stayed together even though they were going through all of that. They were beat down, tear gassed, and it's really hard.
Nice and loud.
I learned to be more appreciative, and I learned that it doesn't hurt to be a leader, and you don't need a lot of people to be by your side. It motivates me to teach more people at my school about this, because a lot of people at my school don't know a lot of African American history, and it doesn't hurt to stand out.
Tatiana, keep the mic. This question comes to you from Allen High School. Says, where are you staying at night during the march, and where did the marchers stay 50 years ago?
Well, we are staying in tents in a national park, and 50 years ago they stayed in a farm not far from the national park, and where we're staying at, and at St. Jude's they stayed at.
Okay, all right. Eliana, are you tired? Part of the journey is walking 12 miles a day. So talk to us about how you're feeling. That's a question from Governor Mifflin High School.
Well, those 12 miles ain't easy. Well, it's really tiring, and my feet really hurt. I think I got blisters too. I was really tired, but it's awesome.
Okay, all right. So it's worth it.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Another question from Governor Mifflin High School is, talk to us about how tough it's been for your families to agree on allowing you to go on this walk. Anyone? The guys keep looking at you because you guys are on the walking tour.
Well, my grandmother, she's really proud of me, and she's happy that I'm here because she knows I get homesick easily, and that I'm sticking it out and I'm learning new things. And through this journey, I'm sending her lots of pictures, and she's just really happy and supportive about the whole thing.
One of the things that you all experienced, particularly as you got closer to Montgomery, was this activity where you got on a bus and you were doing a simulation of the 1950s when some of you were segregated by color on the bus. And whites were told to sit in the front of the bus, and blacks were told to sit in the back of the bus. Talk to us about your experience, and that's a question, several questions that come from Kutztown University. Brian?
Can I take that question?
Sure.
So, thanks. So for me, this is one of the things that evoked a lot of emotions out of me. Coming onto the bus, I was one of the last ones on the bus. Addie, she held me back and she said, no, you have to wait. All the white people have to wait. So I did, I waited and I got on the bus, and to get on the bus and see everyone sit in the back, segregated because they were African American, and I was being told, you have to sit in the front. I had no option, the same way that they had no option. And, being a social studies education major, I know about simulations, and I really wanted to get the full effect. So I envisioned myself in that scenario. I couldn't find it in myself to sit down. I felt, for me personally, I feel so much love in my heart for these people, even though it was the first day meeting them. I felt so much love in my heart, and during the simulation, I just felt a lot of it's like hate was closing in around me, but my heart just wanted to give love. And pick it up. So that was definitely hard for me, and just talking to some of the people who experienced the atmosphere back then when buses were segregated, telling me, no, you have to sit up front. I was pleading with them, let me go to the back. I'll sit on the ground. And then I got told, if you sit back there, whoever seat you take, they have to get up and stand, or they have to walk, whether it be a pregnant woman or whether it be, just a regular
young able-bodied male. It just struck a chord with me. I got very emotional. I couldn't even speak when I was asked to speak about the situation because, as I said, my heart is filled with love, and to have all that hate surrounding me based solely upon the color of someone's skin. Difficult. So that's how the simulation was for me. It was eye-opening and very thought-provoking. So.
To me, the simulation was indeed emotional, and also I want to say that with all the black people moving to the back, it did get crowded, so I would understand their frustrations. But the question reminded me of what Mr. Bernard Lafayette told us. He said that, true, the black people were forced to sit in the back of the bus, but also the white people were forced to sit in the front of the bus. And listening to Brian's response reminded me of that question. So I have to say, with that simulation, I always had the mindset of, white people, they had to sit in the front of the bus. Anger came. But listening to Brian and seeing Brian's emotions and the Hines' emotions, it made me really think about that. Like, really, we had to sit in the back of the bus, but we had to sit in the front of the bus. And you had nice people like Brian who did not agree with that. So it gave me a new insight. You want to take it? Okay.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate that commentary, and that all of these things do have an effect on both the giver and the taker, right? And it's important for us to acknowledge that as we look back to move forward. We got a question from Stockton, California. So we're national, y'all. Question from Stockton says, how many days does your journey last? So how many days are you on this march presently?
8 days.
8 days.
Okay. So an 8-day journey. Okay. I think that's a question that we should engage with. The theme of this event again is looking back to move forward. So can you all address that theme for a moment? So you've been looking at these things that many of your peers would say happened so long ago. Of course, there's some of us that are sitting in this room it wasn't that long ago for us because we're all right here, right? But for some of your peers, it's like, that's ancient history. Talk about what you've learned so far and connect it to our theme. Let's start with you, William, since you haven't spoken much.
Well, one of the things that I was just extremely proud about this whole thing was how we tied together looking back to move forward, because the issues that they dealt with, we're still dealing with those issues today, whether it be voter rights, women's rights, and just basically human rights. So, for instance, we went to the Voters Museum and we saw the batons that people were beaten with, and we saw the dogs that they were just attacked with, and we realized we also saw a jail cell, which is something that people face just for trying to vote. And today we're seeing that people, if it's raining, they stay home. But back then, people, they faced jail, they faced the dogs, they didn't let obstacles get in their way. So when we look back, we really have to just admire their courage and what they did. We're seeing in states all over, state legislatures are trying to pass voter ID laws. And we've heard from black community leaders that this will, prohibit people from getting out to vote. It's going to infringe upon their votes. And in a way, I do understand what they're saying, but when you go to a place like the Voters Museum and you just see the obstacles they face, you really realize that argument is not going to hold up for long. Because if people were willing to walk 54 miles, if they were willing to go out into packs of dogs, if they were willing to walk out into clouds of tear gas, you can't tell me that it's too difficult to get on a bus to go to the next city and get a voter ID. And we saw just basically the challenges women face. They're still not getting paid equally. We went to the Justice Department and we talked about how women aren't reporting their sexual assaults and their violent assaults. So these issues, it's not history. It's not finished. It's a story that's still ongoing. It's a march that we still have to walk each and every single day in our own community. So That's really what I've been learning about this.
And the church said. Yes, sir. So let's continue that thought. Tatiana, talk to us about this theme, a sense of looking backwards to move forward.
Like I said before, I want to be a leader, and I think it's more than just saying you want to lead, and it's more of your actions of being a leader. And like I said, back home, a lot of people don't know about African American history, and I feel like that needs to be more looked at. And like he said, there's a lot going on in different states that is not talked about in our state or in our city, in schools, and I just think that, yeah, it should be talked about more.
Thank you. We have a question from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. What's your opinion on the whole dilemma on whites having power over blacks and blacks being subject to slavery and segregation?
Can I take
Caleb?
that? Okay, that question really just sparked, a fire in me, because the thing that frustrates me the most, especially back home, is the fact that young African American males, we tend to have this idea of the white man got us down. And what I tell them is, we're not segregated anymore. You segregate yourself, but we're not segregated anymore. And so one of the many aspects of this moving classroom we focus on is education. And I lost my train of thought, excuse me. Okay, one of the many, we focus on education. And when they tell me, well, African American, my fellow youth tell me, oh, I can't take this class, I'm dropping out, she's white, she's racist, she just doesn't like me, that's why she gave me an F. And my response is, just think about the Little Rock Nine. Since I go to Central, just think about the Little Rock Nine. Their experience, just so you can sit in that very seat and get your education, and you tell me that you don't want it, you refuse because your teacher is quote unquote racist. It frustrates me. It really does. So yeah, that's where I'm going to go with that.
Brian, I know you wanted to jump in there.
No, I was just really focused on his answer, but can you repeat the question?
We're talking about the look back to move forward.
Look back to move forward. To me, coming onto this trip, looking back and remembering the history, I shouldn't say simple history, but since I've been on this trip, looking back to move forward, remembering the struggle, the persecution based on solely skin color. Looking back to move forward, remembering everything that happened in the past and how that's going to be used today. Since I've been here, I haven't heard anyone look back and complain, gripe, or anything. It's all about, all right, this is what happened. What can we do to continue on getting everything we deserve, equality? Someone told me, who's become very near and dear to my heart, that it's a human issue. It's a human issue.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah. I was at the church yesterday, and a lovely woman named Gwen told me, it's not so much about racial between black and white as it is a human issue. Something that's deep inside of us. It goes far beyond the skin color, far beyond the skin tone. So, and that really struck a chord with me too. A lot of things are striking a chord with me. So it's been a very emotional trip. One that I was not expecting, one that I was just assuming I was going to come on and, learn, meet new people. Since then, I've been looking back on my own life to move forward with myself. So that's my response to the question.
Thank you for that. Let's change gears a little bit since we're talking about this. We've looked back a little bit. Let's talk about the forward movement, if we can. Certainly, a lot of us are interested in what happened in Ferguson last year. You all were in close proximity to that. So share with us how being on this journey having seen some of the things that you've seen, having heard the lessons that you've heard, how do you make sense? We're not here necessarily to rehash what went down in Ferguson. Okay, we're not here to place any blame, but what we're here to do is try to learn, because this is a part of who we are at this point, right? So how do we handle moving forward? So if we can make some connections between what you've seen from our past to what we've seen in our present day, and as we're seeing it, it's not just Ferguson, it's New York, it's California, it's Pennsylvania, it's everywhere in between. So let's make some connections to the Ferguson story for a second. What in being a part of this journey, how does it help you to make sense of what happened, or even what's currently happening? Who wants to jump on that?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's a
it
very
is.
loaded question.
That's what teachers do.
You want to take it?
Do I want to take it? I don't want to take that question.
Okay. I'll try to answer
Okay.
the question.
Take the front one. Caleb's coming.
Well, when I first heard about Ferguson, I was angry, of course, furious, thinking, oh, they killed another black man. But being on this trip made me realize, it made me look at myself and my community, and I thought, well, you know, we're a unified people only when something like this happens. And when I think about the civil rights era, with the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson, even before that, they had a common bond.
Yeah.
And it seems like the only bond we have is when one of our own is taken.
Yeah.
But we have black on black crime. Yet if I was shot, I'm pretty sure there wasn't going to be an uproar about it. If I was shot by a black man, there wasn't going to be an uproar. But if a white man shoots me, it's national news. So that just making the connection from civil rights days to now disappoints me. I mean, this is pretty much a plea to my community. Come together like we did before. Yeah, so that's how I can answer it.
William, jump on that.
Well, yeah, basically like Caleb said. To me, when I see things like the situation that happened in New York and the situation that happened in Ferguson, when a white cop shoots a black kid, you know, growing up, I never saw color. So whenever I saw on television a homicide was a homicide. So I think that the country, we're very emotional as a country, and we like to channel our anger and channel our bitterness. But I think we focus on the wrong things to do that. And instead of being bitter and angry, we should try to be more hopeful and try to find solutions. Like he said, there's black on black crime. There's blacks killing whites. We have to stop focusing on white cops killing black children. We have to stop pretending that whites are the only ones persecuting black Americans. And we just basically, when I think about things like Ferguson, to me, we have to focus more on education. And we have to focus more on the family unit and just keeping kids out of those dangerous situations and making sure that they are upright citizens and making sure that they are, you know, just on the right path of life. So to me, it's never a racial issue. It's just basically just a human rights issue and being on the right pathway.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. Caleb, we have a question directly to you from Tampa, Florida. And the question is related to life in Little Rock. Are race relations still sketchy in 2015?
That is a good question. I would say it depends on where you are. And it depends on who you are. To me, no. But like I said, you do have a certain type of person who only focus on the racial aspect. So, well, I know you have southern parts of Arkansas, like Roland and Harrison, yeah, maybe. But I mean, it's getting better. It really is.
I'm not sure how far Pine Bluff is to Little Rock. William, if you want to take some of that as well.
Well, I live about 45 minutes away from Little Rock. In Palm Bluff, it's actually a predominantly black neighborhood. And I think when we talk about the civil rights movement, we talk about racism, we always focus on whites being racist to blacks. But I think that in the black community, it's something that's not discussed a lot. I do think there is a lot of animosity in the black community towards white individuals. And there is a certain exclusiveness. So if you go into McDonald's and it's full of black people and a white person walks in, things might get tense. It might get quiet because for whatever reason, we see ourselves as different from them, and we might, think they're not part of our community or tribe or whatever. So being from a predominantly black neighborhood, I do see from the other side, blacks showing animosity towards white individuals and towards certain members of our local government. So,
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I want to say I agree with William about the animosity towards whites, but we have to remember there's animosity within ourselves also. One of my experiences is going to school, sitting down with my friends, and they were cracking light skin jokes. I'm like, light skin? I'm black just like you. And they're like, oh, light skin this, light skin that. And I'm like, you mean to tell me that you're going to sit here and dehumanize me because my complexion is just a little bit, lighter than yours? But last time I checked, every time we sit down to take a test, fill in anything, I mark the same bubble, African American, just like you. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that we were discussing over dinner last night, those of us that went, we were talking about the idea that comparing 1950s, 1960s to today, and part of the activism, the differences in activism that we see, particularly related to how activism was different than it is now, right? Particularly, we were wondering what role technology plays in our perhaps lack of activism that we see today, or at least formalized activism that we've seen. So talk to me about the ways in which technology has both maybe incited us and perhaps maybe dulled us in some ways. That I think the comment was we have too much TV or too much internet. What are your thoughts about activism today versus yesterday? Eliana, you want to try that one?
Well, I think it kind of helped us. It helped us because back then they didn't have no phones, no internet, and to find out what's going on in another place and help them was really difficult. They didn't know about it, so they couldn't help. But now that we have internet, TV, phones, Facebook, we connect with other people that need help, and we can go help them. So
it can be a tool for activism.
Yeah.
well, I'll just say all we have to do is just look around this room. I mean, we're broadcasting to anywhere in the nation talking about these very important issues. So people who can't be here in Montgomery with us talking about these things, they're still a part of the discussion. And I'll never take the position that technology is bad for any activism. Like Martin Luther King said, the March to Selma, it would have been for nothing if it wasn't for people out there with their cameras and with their just capturing the images. So technology is always going to be a good thing.
As a person who looks at the ways in which media shapes who we are and what we think about things, I do find it interesting when we begin to see how communities engage with technology today. Certainly in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we didn't, you're right, Ileana, that we didn't have certain things that we have today. We were discussing last night how if we had a phone or if we had a TV, we only had one. But now there's TV. Everybody has a TV. Everybody has a phone, and there's a separation of some sorts. But I love the way that you said that it does have a way to tie us together. But I wonder about the local community. I know on a college campus where I work, students who are roommates text each other in the same room instead of talking to each other. Do you see that as an issue today? Are we too technological, Caleb?
Well, I won't say we're too technological, given that I'm biased. I am a teenager, of course, but there is, like you said, you're in the same room and you're texting. I think that technology does desensitize us from communication. Today, we don't know how to speak to one another. So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think part of that connection then is sometimes we have to turn the technology off.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like that old guy parent, but ladies from iLead, we have a question for you. It's specifically related to how are Latinos dealing with racial issues in Reading?
Well, I'm actually new to iLead. I've been a year, but at our old building, we had a Caucasian lady as the owner, and she actually pushed us out because majority of the students there are Hispanic and Latinos, and it's sad, like, that it has to be that way, and yeah. That's it.
While we're on the subject of solutions, one question we got from Kutztown University. How do you think we can solve racial issues that are still going on today? Who wants to take that one? Doesn't necessarily have to be Brian because you're from Kutztown.
Yeah. So your question was, how can we solve?
How do you think we can solve racial issues that are still going on today?
How can we solve racial issues that are going on today? I mean, if there was a clear-cut answer for everyone and every culture, there'd be a solution by now. For me, the solution, I'm going to tell you what I observed since I've been here. I'm a man of faith, and many of the people on this trip are people of faith. I came on this trip, they did not see the color of my skin. They strictly saw that I am a son of God. And I strictly saw in them that they are as well children of God. There didn't have to be a solution because there was no problem with us. There was never going to be a problem with us. There still will never be a problem with us. So talking about, we talked a lot about bridging a gap, which is coming up with a solution. For us, and I think I can speak for all of you, right? The bridge that gapped us is Christ for us. For the rest of the world, you have to find your own solution. You know what I mean? So that's my response. That's the solution for me, for us. So
I feel like I should be doing this. So let's talk some more about solutions. Part of that is sort of bridging the gap, reaching across the divide. Let's say more about that. What are your thoughts, William? What about you? We're talking about bridging the gap, crossing the cultural divides, breaking down bridges.
Well, yeah, basically what he said was a big thing, faith and just the church, period. But another thing that I'm passionate about in terms of bringing the communities together is family. And I think a lot of times we think that family means blood, but family is more of a spiritual thing, and it's a connection of the soul and of, the mind and common goals. And over the past few days, I would say that everybody in this room in some way or another is my family. And when I look out onto their faces, it's almost as if, I've grown up with them and I've just been with them, since I was little. Like Bishop Hearns, like he's my uncle or something. Like Tina's that crazy aunt that comes over every once in a while. So whenever you have that connection of family, it's very easy just to go sit by them and just soak up their knowledge. Like all the time whenever I'm on the bus, sometimes I'll just sit back and just listen to them because they're just so full of stories and history and culture. So you just basically, it's the family unit, just sitting back, connecting with people, understanding where they've come from and where they're going. And once you do that, then everything else just falls away. Color, gender, everything.
Beautiful. For those that are watching via telecast, you should know that the moving classroom experience is intergenerational. And so it's not just students together themselves. We got some folks who've been around a minute, some seasoned folks with us. And we got some folks all along the spectrum. We've got people who are retired, people who are currently working. And so this is an opportunity to grow together. So as you hear William talk about his auntie and his uncle, that's because they've been doing this together. And while we're on that, let's engage that for a moment, because you all, I imagine, have grandparents who sometimes, I imagine, would look at you and say, you know, back in my day. And they look at the youth maybe in a condescending way. But we know that a large portion of the civil rights movement was dealing with children and young people. That a lot of the movement that got made, when we think about the Children's March, or we talk about the role of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Let's talk about, speak to your generation about the necessity of their involvement, particularly learning from our senior members of our communities. How do we bridge that gap about age? How do we help our elders teach us? How do we learn from them? What can we teach them?
Okay, being a Southern boy, I love my grandmother, love my grandfather. And one thing I can remember my grandmother telling me is, I sat down with her, we had breakfast, biscuits, rice, coffee. And she said to me, son, boy, one day I'm going to die. And when I die, I'm going to need you. I'm going to need your help. I'm like, okay, Grandma, don't want to talk about this, but why? What's up? And she told me, when I die, my stories, my life lessons, and of course my cooking, where is that going to go? And I didn't really think about it. I was like, Grandma's like old, so that time will come eventually. And what am I going to do? I can't sit on her lap, listen to her stories. Can't go talk to Papa. So I have to say, take your time, take the time while they're here to listen to them. So you can then go out and share those stories, share those life lessons. And I think if that happens, the whole generation, my generation, we will be truly educated.
You said, what does it take?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does it take? Watch this. Ready? This is what it takes. All it takes. Can you tell me about yourself? That's all you have to ask your grandparents. Trust me, I've done it, and they won't be quiet. So
That's a true teacher there, who has a visual aid, right? And I thank you for that, Brian, because it is emblematic of what the truth is. What if we actually talked to people? What if we actually took our earbuds out and went and engaged with someone? Imagine. There's a question that happens I work on a college campus, so my mind is shaped around college campuses. There's a constant question of, why are all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria? Of course, my question is that I respond with, how come all the white kids are sitting together in the cafeteria? The cafeteria in our high schools are places where segregation happens, social isolation happens. And if we would just learn to just go talk to people, how much better would we be? We are getting inundated with questions. Y'all are just making an impact all over the world. From Schuylkill Valley High School, they're interested in going back to some of the things you've done along this journey. What was the place you visited, or a museum or conservation site, that had the most effect on you? Something that you will never forget.
Well, actually, we did go to a home that Martin Luther King planted the Selma march within. And when we think about these civil rights figures, and when we think about people in history, we always think of them as larger than life. And we think of them as these superhuman people who were just extraordinarily grand. We forget that they were human. They had to sit at dining room tables and eat a meal. They had to go to bed. They had to take showers. And so just going to that house and just seeing how normal it was, yet when he was extraordinarily human, but when he got a call to be extremely human and change the world, he answered that call to humanity. So no matter how normal your circumstances are, or how, poor your community may be, no matter how much crime there is in it, don't ever think that that's something that can stop you from achieving great things. And no matter how small your house is, whether you have an apartment or maybe even if you're just homeless, don't ever think that that's a measure of your greatness or a measure of the things that you've yet to achieve. Because Martin Luther King, he didn't let his human circumstances determine how great he was going to be for humanity. So basically that house just told me it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you are now. It just matters your vision for the world and the people around you.
Well, the place that had the most impact on me was a voting rights museum right across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And when I was walking my head down, of course, texting, and I looked up, and there in front of me was a replica of a Klansman. He had a rope in his hand. It scared me, like jump back. Yeah, it scared me. And then I realized, I was like, wow. If this dummy intimidates me, just imagine what the real person would do. But that didn't stop the people working in the civil rights movement. It didn't stop Martin Luther King, didn't stop Rosa Parks, didn't stop anyone. And I was in so much emotion thinking, wow, they did it with all this opposition, with the threat of death, lynching, hanging by a rope. They managed to overcome that. And it just reminded me of the saying, courage is the absence of, fear, something about fear, but in order to have courage, there has to be fear. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know the full reason, but something touched my heart when we went into the Frederick Douglass house. And, yeah, and I'm still reflecting on that day, but the Frederick Douglass house was...
Why did it impact you so much?
I don't know. I don't know yet the reason, but I don't know. Something in there just made me feel some type of way.
Okay, thank you. I had a similar reaction in Frederick's house, so I was interested in finding that out. Because when we think of it, why are we taking this day to kick off this social justice retreat or teaching as a way of honoring Frederick Douglass for us from Pennsylvania? The story is so powerful. You take a man who was born in chattel slavery. You take a man who was born at a time when it was against the law for him to learn to read and write, but he took a little bit, the little bit that he was given, and it transformed him. Right? And it was through that education where he began to free others. And so that house that sits on a hill, Cedar Hill, has this, it's a place where this man, at the end of his life, could look out, sit on his front porch, and to the right look out and see the plantation where he was born. And to the left, look out and see the state capitol building. That's a story. I think, William, what you were saying about this idea of who we are, regardless of our circumstances, we have greatness within us. We only have a few more moments left with our students before we transition. And so we got quite a few questions that are specifically related to what do you take back from this? How do you, when you all go home, can each of you just give us a brief moment of what do you take with you? And how will you use that to transform your local communities, whether it's your high schools, whether it's your communities where you live, or a university even? Let's start down here with Tatiana and then just go down.
Well, being here, I learned that family is a very important thing. Like me and my family, I don't know a lot about my grandmother, and I'm getting from this, like when I get home, I feel like my family should come together more and talk more, and with my school, do more things with our community and bring us together, because it is falling apart, and just like togetherness is a big thing.
Before I came here, my principal, Dr. Smith, she gave me a motto, and it was to never stop dancing. What I will take back with me that I've learned is to never give up on what's right, to always follow what's right. And I'm gonna take that back and teach my brothers. I'll teach my daughter to never stop, because everything could be solved. We should all always come together as a family. We should always be together, because that's how things will always work out.
My city of Pine Bluff, there's a lot of struggles in Pine Bluff, whether it be poverty, whether it be a dilapidated downtown area, whether it be a school district that's struggling to be proficient. So basically, we see all these obstacles and we think that we can't overcome them. Just basically going back to Pine Bluff, I just want to relay the message that people that came before us, they had much greater obstacles to overcome. They have far greater challenges to overcome. And we lose perspective of that. And we think the ones that we face, that they're, the largest thing to ever just face our community, but they're not. And people have, they've won and they triumphed before. So just go back and just tell them, if we work together, we do the right thing, we can still overcome a lot of these things.
The whole concept of unity, that is what I'm taking with me back home. And I do have to admit that when I try to go out and sermonize to my youth, if they don't listen to me, I'll give up and I'll just push them away. But I have to remember, where's the progress with that? You can't just cast one off, because what's going to happen to that person? You have to minister to the whole flock. So coming together and not giving up on one another, that's what I'm taking with me.
Thank you.
So what I'm taking with me, simply put, my growing love for humanity. Simply put, what am I going to do to make a difference in my community? I'm not even going to talk about it right now. I'm going to act on what I feel inside. And after I'm done acting on it, whoever wants to come up to me and talk about it then, I will be glad to talk about it. But I want to act first. I definitely want to act first. So that's what I take from it, my growing love for humanity.
Thank you. One question that continues to reverberate through some of those that are tweeting in. We've got a number of teachers or pre-service teachers who are watching this telecast, and they want to know, what can they do as teachers? So from your perspective, as students in the high schools as well as in the college, what can your teachers be doing to better prepare you for this type of action that you want to take, to prepare you for making a better society, for a better world, even dealing with some of the issues that, as we see them pop up?
You mind if I take that?
Sure, go ahead.
So I know Kutztown University is watching. So the first thing, let's communicate. Let's get together. Let's talk about it. Let's start there. For me, that's what I think. That's where we need to begin. So back at home, my own personal communications with my colleagues at Kutztown, let's talk about it. Because we're going to get somewhere by talking about it and communicating.
I'll just say very briefly, When you think about the teachers that had the most impact on you in your life, it's not the teachers that just came in, told you to sit down, get your books out, let's get the lesson done, and when class was over, they just dismissed you and that was it. Those weren't the teachers that stood out to you. The teachers that stand out to you are the ones that go that extra mile. They ask you how your day is going. They try to get to know you. They try to mentor you. A lot of kids out there have low self-esteem. A lot of kids out there don't believe in themselves, and they're frustrated whenever they lack knowledge. They're frustrated with that, and they channel that violence elsewhere. So we just need teachers who are out there just trying to get into the minds of the youth. That's what's going to move the country forward. So those are really the best kinds of teachers.
Ladies, either of you?
Like he said, just the teachers being more interested in how we feel about our community and just talking about togetherness and coming together and addressing issues that are going on in our nation and just being there, I guess.
We certainly need about 6 more hours to hear from these students, because they have so much to say and they have so much to give us. And let me say this on behalf of the state system of higher education in Pennsylvania. Admissions officers who are watching, particularly the ones at Bloomsburg University, pay attention. Find these students. We need them at Bloomsburg. That's a shameless plug. But we are going to switch gears here momentarily. Can we just pause and thank these students so much for being here and sharing their hearts with us. Those of you that are watching by telecast, just give us about 2-3 minutes. Take a break. We're going to come back with our adult panel. We have some officers and a teacher. They're going to share some thoughts with us from their perspective. So just give us a few minutes to reshape, and we'll be back in just a few moments. All right, welcome back. We're so excited. Thank you, sir. We're so excited to be back. My goodness. Our young people certainly are giving us some things to think about. But not only that, they're inspiring us. And that, to me as an educator, is so, so important, that our students understand that they too are responsible. You heard a lot of them talk about the importance of togetherness. You heard a lot of them talk about the importance of family. And what's great is as they talk about, it's just not the people that I'm blood connected to. That family is all of us together. That family is all about making connections with one another across divides, across generations. And so we're very excited that our young people kicked off our morning with a real call to action. That they're not just, as you heard Brian say, it's not just about going back and telling others what they have learned, but it's about let's put some things into action. And that's what one of my favorite books as an educator that I've come across in the last few years is putting some movement back into civil rights teaching. And that's what we really need today. We need action. And so for the second part of our panel, we are very happy to have some seasoned veterans of various fields and industries, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. You don't want to miss this part of the panel because it's people, some of them who have direct connection to life in Ferguson, and so you definitely want to be paying attention. So let's let them introduce themselves, and I appreciate you all for being here.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Grigsby, and I am the social studies teacher at McClure South Berkeley High School, which is in the Ferguson Florissant School District.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Major Rochelle D. Jones from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. I am a 32-year law enforcement professional, and I am the commander of the South Patrol. That's the city of St. Louis. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Donald Hines. I'm the ESL Services Director at iLead Charter School in Reading, Pennsylvania. And I have been there 2 years, and before that I was a missionary in Chile for a 15-year period, and I'm bicultural and bilingual.
Good morning. My name is Jason Howard. I am with the Pine Bluff Police Department, which is in Arkansas. I'm a 13-year veteran on street patrol and in the detective division.
Thank you for being here and welcome. I guess we'll start in the same way that we started with the students. As you all are making this journey with the students as a part of the moving classroom, can you all share your thoughts about what you've learned and so what's significant for you? And in addition to that, would you speak to what you're learning from working directly and being directly integrated with the students and what you're learning about youth today?
Thank you. I'm going to start with the first part of the question. I have to admit that I had a lot of preconceived notions before I accepted this tour. I didn't know what to expect. As I arrived in Virginia on our first night, my stomach was in knots, and as I got a chance to look at the itinerary and look at everything that we were going to experience, I still didn't get a full grasp of how important this was going to be in my life and how I was going to be able to take all of this information back and spread it around and teach my fellow teachers as well as the students all the things that we've learned. Working with the students, I think I was probably more apprehensive. We brought along a group of students from Ferguson Florissant School District, and I was probably more apprehensive about the trip than they were, and I was trying to hold it back, and I'm going to be encouraging for them. But while we're on the journey, I think I'm learning just as much as they are. I am so excited for the rest of the journey and for us to see more of more history and be able to bring this stuff back to the students in Ferguson.
I didn't know what to think as well. I was excited, but I was also very honored because out of all the police officers on the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, my chief and our public safety director selected myself, and I would have thought that they would have selected one of the younger officers. And when the chief told me about it, I was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Yeah, because you will represent our department," and I was very honored about that. And for me, in going through this whole journey, being a police officer and then seeing and knowing what the police officers did, I don't stand for that now. And I realized during that time period there was hardly any women and there wasn't hardly any blacks. But I don't stand for that. I don't stand for people getting mistreated, people being beat down because of something that they are trying to establish or something that they're trying to achieve. And then the second part of that, the students. The students they're very, very smart, which I knew they would be. They're smart, they're intelligent, they're teaching me things, and they're helping me with Twitter, because I was having like a real problem, and I knew I was like, here. I gave them my phone. I was like, I've got a problem with Twitter, and they were like, tick, tick. Okay, here you go, ma'am. Very quickly, and I was like, okay, thank you, Jesus, for that. But they're intelligent, they're smart, they are thoughtful, and hey, the students are the future, because I'm got to get out of the way, and they are the future. And it makes me feel so good in knowing that these types of people will take over for me, and they'll be even better than I am at what I do.
The question was, for me, what it means, and I think I can answer that on two different levels. First of all, on a very personal level, me as a human being, and to be frank, as a white human being, I was born in 1968, just a couple of months before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. And so I didn't live through Selma. I wasn't conscious of political and social events at the time. And I have learned a lot through the years, but not nearly like I am on this trip. This has been something that to actually meet people who were there, as Brian said in the student panel, has brought some really emotional moments to wake me up to the feelings and thought patterns and background of those of other races around me. I frankly, on a personal level, have felt horribly embarrassed, especially during the bus simulation. And as we watched the videos back at school in preparation for this trip of the original events, that my people could have ever thought that black people were less of human beings, could ever have treated them. I would like to think, if I lived back then, that I wouldn't have done that, but it scares me to think that maybe I would have been involved in that. I just horrible to think of that, and it's a horror to me on one side. On a professional level, as a teacher, this trip means the world to me, because I am an action-minded person. I like to teach. I like to tell kids what I know and convey knowledge to them, but I see their eyes glaze over in the classroom, and I know that the way to get to them is to live it, to be there, to talk to people. And I can see my learners that I've brought on this trip, just their eyes just it was hilarious last night as we sat at dinner. The young lady that served us, who shall remain nameless, came up and she asked if we were hungry. Oh, yeah, we're really hungry. We just walked 12 miles. Why'd you do that? Well, we walked from, we're on the walk from Selma to Montgomery. Well, what's that? And my learners, their eyes just popped open and said, "You don't know about that?" They were like totally shocked. We just walked 12.7 miles on a historic trail, and this person that lives in the area had no idea what that was about. So they are being changed by this trip. I wish we could have brought our whole high school down for that. And so just to go to the question on youth, as the major said, on one hand, they are so talented, so aware of what's going on in their social environments. Yes, they're expressing it through a medium that we don't usually are not as prone to use as older adults, but they are aware. They are very social. They are very interested in causes, but they have lacked the knowledge. They have lacked somebody to bring it home to them to where it can affect their lives and they can become part of the solution in the future. And I think this trip has been a great opportunity to involve them in the solution in future years. So.
Well, whenever I was asked to come on the march by my chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, and captain, I was like the major right here. I was shocked. I was like, when are we going to do that? And what made you pick me? But I'm glad they picked me. I feel very honored that they picked me. As of the other question, how I feel about it, the books, the TV shows and stuff, the TV shows and things, they do not tell the truth about it. They give spots of what happened. And hearing the truth of it is very emotional. Very emotional. As far as the youth, in my city, I always talk to the youth. You get most of your information from the youth, and I learn about a lot of things from them. A lot of the youth trust in me because I haven't let them down yet. So, and it's gonna feel good when I go back to Pine Bluff. Whenever they tell stories of what their grandparents and everything went through, I can also share what I've seen and what I've been through on this journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Major, we have a question for you from Boston, Massachusetts. What type of training do St. Louis and Ferguson police officers go through in your department to learn about dealing with different races?
Okay, I can't speak for the Ferguson Police Department, but I can speak for the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We have diversity training every year. That's a part of our post-certification. Each police officer has to be certified, and as part of that, you have to be trained. But also, I depend on being in a leadership role. I depend on the sergeants, and the sergeants are the actual commanders that are down on what I call being on the ground with the troops. They should be observing what the ladies and gentlemen are doing. They should be observing how they are interacting with the citizens. And if they see something that is not right, that someone is not being treated respectfully or decent, what I expect that supervisor to do is to take action. So it's two-pronged. We do have training, which is actual book training, which is no matter what profession you have to have book training. But for me, it is who's actually out there, who's watching what they do, who's observing what they do, who's seeing what they do. And if they don't do the right thing, is it a teachable moment? Can we teach them? Or do they have to go take it higher? Do we have to write them up? What needs to be done? So in essence, there's training for that. But that's the book stuff.
You want to address the Pine Bluff?
We go through the same diversity training, racial profiling, harassment training, what you have to do every year. But as a field training officer, what I always tell people is treat people like you want to be treated. Do what's right, and you won't have to worry about anything. So that's basically what when we go through. Like she said, every police department has so much training they have to do every year, and all kinds of training come within that year. So we're trained throughout all firearms, diversity training, harassment training. They started a racial profiling training a couple of years ago, even though that is the diversity training, but they added a little more onto it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Grigsby, there have been several questions that people are interested in knowing about how you all were handling the protests as they were going on. When the news first broke back in August, through this time, how did you all handle in the schools what was going on, and even today, what's happening?
Very good question. Our school district is awesome. I'm not trying to plug them because I work there, but from the very first day after Michael Brown was killed, our district reached out to the staff because it not only affected what was going on with the students, but then it affected us as well. We had a lot of teachers who were new to the district, and this was a black cloud that just got placed over the district. Now you have teachers that are saying, I don't know for sure if I want to work in this type of environment. So we had diversity training as well. We also had a crisis management team to come in and speak with the staff first. So we were able to get ourselves together and figure out how we were going to cope with this tragedy and how we were going to help the students. So we did that first. Second of all, we were told to let the kids be able to express themselves. Some of our kids lived very close to where the incident happened. My school in particular is right down the street from the Ferguson Police Department, so at times our buses had to be diverted away from the protests in order for them to get to school every day. And some of those students actually had to walk through the protest and all the news media and the cameras that were set up. The one thing that I think helped us is that we created an environment where our students felt welcome. They felt as if they could come and talk to each one of the teachers and tell us how they were feeling. They felt as though this was a place where, regardless of whatever was going on outside in the community, that they could come here and feel safe, and they didn't have to worry about some of the things that they had to worry about in the community. I do want to say that this issue that happened in Ferguson is not unique to Ferguson. It's not something that just popped up today. This is something that our students had to deal with pretty much all of their lives. It's just that Ferguson was the one that got put in the spotlight. As teachers, you have to be empathetic. Most of us grew up in that particular area or in an area close to Ferguson. So there again, we knew that these types of issues were in the community. So you just have to be the type of person as a teacher that can get the students to feel comfortable with you. I think one of the students on the panel said that they have to feel comfortable enough to express themselves and to feel as though you care. You care enough to be there. You care enough to help them if they have a problem.
Thank you. We have a question from the iLead School in Reading that says, what was it like to be a police officer during this time of protests, whether it was in Ferguson or, because certainly this had ramifications larger than Ferguson, right? So what was it like to be a police officer during this time?
Okay, I was in Ferguson as a part of the mutual aid pact. We assist municipalities in this city. St. Louis is made up of more than 90 municipalities. That's something that a lot of folks don't understand. At times, I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. I felt, even though I was there and I saw everything, I'm very visual, I kept saying to myself, this is St. Louis. Is this for real? It's like 20 minutes away from where I live. Is this real? Are they really throwing bricks at us? Are they really throwing water bottles, frozen water bottles at us? Are we out here? Is this real? And it's like, Rochelle, yes, it is real, and you're here. So it was very, very emotional for me, but I knew I had a job to do. I have a job to do. This is my career, my life's passion, and I knew I had to be very professional. But I also know that as a leader, as the students watch the teachers, the guys and gals that work for me, they watch what I do. I always say the head wags the tail. So they watch what I do, and I knew I had to be proper, which has been my way for 32 years. I have to do the right thing. I have to treat people right, take my orders. But it's almost surreal, but it's happening, and you have to be very, very professional. So, I was like right there for many, many days, and then I had to go back to the city police department, and we had some black males to be killed in the city, and that started it all up again. So it makes you humble. It makes me sad. I was embarrassed. Just a whole gamut of emotions.
Well, in Arkansas, we cannot speak what happened on Ferguson because we weren't there. But after the Ferguson incident, the police started getting a lot of disrespect towards them. Whenever we go to arrest someone, tell someone they're under arrest, they're talking about, look, he's about to shoot me, he's about to kill me. We got a lot of that, and the only thing we can do is just talk to them down and make the arrest. But since the Ferguson issue, anytime it's a white officer trying to arrest a black guy, most of the time we get that. Even with the black officers about to arrest a black gentleman or something, they get it too. So and it's not just in adults, it's in juveniles. All the way down from 13 and 14-year-olds in junior high school. They get treated the same way. So it's just all about the way you approach somebody and the communication you have with that person. I found it easier to explain why you're fixing to arrest him, and if he's still being violent or tries to run or whatever, at least you told him why you're having to make the arrest.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Heim, there's a question from your students at iLead. Did you ever think or try to do something about racism in your time?
That's a really good question. And I shared on the bus on the way down, we had opportunity to share our personal stories and our personal experiences. And as I grew up in Philadelphia, I'm very thankful for my parents and the upbringing I had. Maybe it was because we had more trouble in the house with other areas, but I never was taught to be racist. I never heard racial comments from my parents, but I grew up in North Philly, and our school, my elementary school, was right on the border of Lucerne Street with North Philly and Juniata Park, and it was a mixed school. We had half white, half black, and I played at recess with my black friends. I only saw them at school because there was segregation in the sense that the communities were separated, but in school, I never thought about the difference in race. And of course, thankfully, my teachers didn't make comments or there was no bias there either. So I was kind of, I think, brought up in a cocoon. I didn't realize what was going on at the time. And to think that, I was born in 1968, and I was raised at a time when race relations were probably at a low in some ways. And have I done anything in my life to bridge that gap? Well, I was a missionary in Chile for 15 years, and I learned not only to understand a foreign culture, the Hispanic culture from a Chilean perspective, but I feel like in my personal life I have become bicultural. My thinking has been changed in the way I see things by living in Chile and learning a foreign language and speaking that foreign language to the point that now it's part of my soul, really. And what I'm doing now, I feel like, is a help, not necessarily with African-American white relations, but Reading is a city of 85% and some say higher Hispanic population. And now I am the ESL services director, so I'm directly involved with helping Hispanics that are coming to the United States how to learn English and how to get the tools to be successful in our country at a time when immigration is such a hot topic and people are called illegal aliens when a lot of people really don't understand what that means. And so I feel like that as I help Hispanic children and I help African American children get an education, which some say is the great equalizer, get a good education, get the tools that they need to be successful in life, I am helping bridge that gap between races. I'm helping those that are disadvantaged to raise their level and become part of society and operate and function as U.S. citizens. All should.
Thank you. All of you, in some ways, have raised a similar issue in a way that throughout coverage of what's going down in Ferguson and beyond, if we think Eric Garner in New York and other places, talk about the role of media in making your lives more difficult and perhaps in helping. One of the things, as I was listening to you, Mr. Heim, just seconds ago, it made me think, how are we helping our students understand the media differences in media interpretation that are out there? And this can be to anyone.
Here, I'll take it. I think the media can be a double-edged sword. It's good in getting information out. It gets information out quickly, but through my experiences, sometimes the information is slanted towards the news person, and a lot of times citizens don't understand when you initially get to a scene. For me, being a commander, I have to get there. I have to get an understanding as to what happened. Okay, as soon as I get there, they'll run up to me and say, "Hey, can you tell me what happened?" And I'm like, "Hey, I need to go over here, and I need to talk, and I need to get a good understanding." And then when I come back and talk to them, it is merely a brief synopsis as to what happened. I may say, okay, he got shot 5 times. Later on, we may actually have found out that the victim was shot 12 times. Then they'll say, "Oh, well, you were lying. You were lying." And I'm like, no. As I told you, we are still very early in our investigation. Okay, so it's not that, and I'm speaking from my perspective, I'm not trying to lie to the citizens. The citizens have a right to know, but there are certain things that I can tell you at the scenes. There's certain things that I can't. And what I don't want, especially with everything that's going on, is the citizens to feel that I'm trying to lie to them or that I'm trying to hide things. But the news person is like right there, well, can you make a statement? I've got a deadline, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So it's good and it's bad. And another thing that's good being a police officer, if I have a description of a suspect that I want to get out right away, description of a vehicle or something that will help us capture the suspect, I can get that out right then and there, and they will broadcast that, and that has helped the police. But I think media, I think it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's like a necessary evil sometimes.
Speaking specifically to the Ferguson incident, I do want people to understand that the media, like she said, skewed a lot of things. Ferguson is not as small as the media portrayed it to be. On television, they made it seem as if we burned the whole city down and that, oh my God, everything is just horrible in Ferguson. All of those incidents that you saw were in a very confined area. We're in a small area of a portion of Ferguson. Ferguson is a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful place to live. It's just two things happened. There were people who wanted their 10 minutes of fame, and so a lot of times they brought agitation to Ferguson. So it made it seem as if everybody in Ferguson is crazy. They are just hoodlums. They tear up their community and they're doing all these horrible things. And that's not really what took place in Ferguson. There were a lot of people that wanted to use this as their platform to cause destruction and to continue to cause a divide between white and black in the community. And that's not what the case really is in Ferguson. And we don't want people to go away thinking that these people are crazy. Why would they burn their community down? And that's their economic base. And that's not necessarily what happened.
I would like to speak to that because I was actually there. No, and I'm really excited about this because I was there and I saw people from Jennings, people from the other different municipalities, like they were going shopping, walking in to loot. It was outside people. So I want to reiterate what Michelle said. The majority of the folks in Ferguson are very decent, law-abiding, and they are caring people. I go to church with some of them. I shop in Ferguson. They're not bad people, but you had outside agitators and outside people coming, burning, doing the looting, and that gave everybody a bad look. Everybody, especially if you don't live there, you think, oh wow, Ferguson is bad. Just like some folks think, oh wow, all the police officer, everybody is bad. But I don't stand, being a police officer, that's not what I stand for. So that is a very good point in saying that everybody from Ferguson is not bad.
I appreciate your answers. Mrs. Grigsby, we have a question directly for you. There is a Ferguson High School student that is on the journey with you all. And this high school student explained earlier this week that while in D.C., the students sat teachers down and told them how to teach, and that the teachers had to raise their hands. And they were asking you to explain that from your perspective.
Well, I'm going to start by saying Vaughn is a wonderful young man, if he's watching. Yes, I knew who it was. Okay, Vaughn started, he's very passionate about education, about his future, and about helping the community. So I'm going to start by saying that. So he started at his high school, McClure High School, a student organization, a student group. And in this student group, they raise social awareness to different issues. One of the issues that they were really concerned with is that adults don't listen to them. They talk at them, and they don't involve them in decision making. And a lot of the decisions that they're making are affecting their lives. So he was very adamant that in their organization, their little group, that they were going to be in control, and that whoever wanted to speak, whatever the adult was, they had to ask permission, raise their hand. In some cases, they had to write their questions down ahead of time so they could be checked to make sure they were right. They wanted, it was very structured. And I admire his tenacity. He actually had an opportunity to speak to the board about his concerns, to the Board of Education in Ferguson, Florissant. He spoke to some other dignitaries about his concerns and how he felt, he's a senior, but how he felt that the legacy for his school and the amount of education that they were receiving should have been way higher than what they were receiving. And it's not because they're not wonderful teachers at McClure, it's just that the state of education today, everything is more geared towards testing. And so he found, as he was applying to colleges and wanting to know about more about colleges, that there were things that he still didn't know. And he was quite concerned about that. So in his group, that's one of the things that they're very passionate about, is making sure that their voices are heard about different issues in the community and about their education.
This question is directed to our teachers on the panel. That's related to how should teachers be integrating social justice and protest into the curriculum moving forward? So both of you can.
I think I was just reflecting as I was listening to this young man, Vaughn, and his effort to bring social issues to the forefront from a student's perspective, and couple that with what we heard about the media. One of the major objectives of a teacher is to teach the students critical thinking skills. And these issues that come up are a great platform to do that. Social justice is a subject that needs to be taught. It needs to be something that is in the forefront of curriculums, especially as it pertains to social studies department. But I think across the board, as an English teacher, it also should be part of the subject matter, because there's nothing that inspires learners and students to think about issues and to write about issues and to learn to frame issues in the language of the day, which will be English or Spanish in a Spanish class, than things that are close to their heart, things that are fresh for them and real for them. And these situations and these issues are what the learners are passionate about and should be allowed to write about and should be encouraged to think about. And then we should, as teachers, having been down the road and having received the training, should give them the structure to think about it. Obviously, the practices, the good practices to frame the discussion in, but then fuel that learning with the things that they're passionate about and help them. It will naturally cause them to learn about those things in a real way if it's passionate. It's a passionate subject for them. So.
Did you want to add? Okay. Okay, thank you for that. We're getting short on time and want to be careful to watch our time. I'm going to combine two questions here because they're related. One coming from Denver, Colorado, and the other coming from the iLead School in Reading. Both deal with the power of education. In part, the iLead question deals with truancy. How do we stem truancy? Because we recognize that education is so important, but how do we stem truancy? And that may be related perhaps to Denver's question about the role of teachers and others to support and empower students.
Truancy is something that for iLead Charter School is very dear to their hearts, because the purpose of the charter school, you have a lot of STEM schools starting up, science, technology schools starting up to emphasize the educational side of things. And get a better education for in many cases it's the advanced students. In our case, iLead started with a goal to bring dropouts back to school, and we had night school, and we had a lot of learners that were over the age of 18 as part of our school. And the way that we did that, number one, was to put it in common language, we had to beat the bushes. We have a very aggressive attendance team who will go out and visit the homes and talk to the parents and encourage the parents to let their kids come back to school, talk to the students that have left school and encourage them, cajole them, or whatever they could to get the learners back into school, because education is such an important part of a person's future, and such an important part of a community's future, to have their students, have their young people get to school, finish school, get the diploma, go on to college. And so a part of that is the aggressive attendance team, but also I think the schooling has to be excellent. They have to have a school that really is going to deliver them the tools to accomplish their goals and see these learners go on to be successful. And we have a number of cases that we can look to as a school and say, this is the product we want. These students have received our education and they've gone on and they are becoming successful. Money was not a barrier for them. They could move on to college and go on to good schools and receive great training and be successful in their life. So.
Thank you. The final question that I would like each of you to address is the same one that I asked the students. The theme of this event, of this moving classroom, is a look back to move forward. In some final summatory thoughts, what's the takeaway for you as you think about your professional roles, as you think about going back to your communities? Look back to move forward.
I've been teaching for 17 years. It has been a very turbulent 17 years. Education has gone from, education for me, teaching, has gone from extreme passion to a point where it was extremely low, because I felt as though I wasn't doing my part to educate the students. I felt as though every year my students were getting less and less of me. I think this journey for me has been more of an awakening. It's been something that has renewed my spirit in teaching. I feel more energized, just simply because I know that they need me. Not tooting my horn, but I think I am a really good teacher, and I have a philosophy. They don't care what I know until they know that I care about them, not just what they do in the classroom, but what they do beyond the classroom. And a catalyst for them, and what I've learned from the trip, is that there's so much more to be thankful for, so much more. I want our students to be proud to sit in that classroom and learn what they've learned. And I want them to be proud when they graduate from high school and they walk across the stage and they put that diploma on their mom's coffee table, and be proud when they get their first college report card and it says, I have all of these grades. And I want them to come back and inspire more students to continue the journey. So I think for me, the trip has been humbling. I'm a little sore from the 12.7 miles, a little out of shape, but I'm going to work on that. But I do think that if I had the opportunity to bring fellow teachers along on the journey just for inspiration, to give them that pick-me-up, that this is something we would definitely do.
Okay, and looking back, I think it was very, very difficult. The walk that they took, they didn't have any porta potties and all the nice things that we had. And I feel that if they could do it, they could walk, they could get voters in and get the right to vote, that I could do that. And I'm going to do that. 3 things that I've always done throughout my career. It's mentoring, it's reaching back and teaching people what I know. It's communication. Good communication is a wonderful thing, and it's networking. And you network and communicate with people when you don't need anything, when things are not bad. And they know, just like for me, everybody knows what Rochelle Jones stands for when everything is real good. So when it gets bad, they know they can come to me and I'll give them the real deal, and that I will help them.
For me, the takeaway is that teaching is such an important part of our community's lives. I reflect on that monument that's outside of Brown's Chapel that emphasizes the fact that those that brought power to the dissent in Selma were teachers. There's a long list of teachers there who stood up with their community and said, this isn't right, this is the way we need to go. And I am just very touched and ecstatic about the opportunity to bring my students down here to Selma and experience this. And I know that by doing that, they will walk away changed. And they have done us proud, and I'm very glad to have been part of this activity.
Thank you.
For me, the looking back to move forward, after taking this journey, I can explain to people, if you look at what happened in the past, which is looking back, you would always want to move forward because you would always want to better yourself, no matter what the situation is, and never give up, because the people in the past that took the real journey never gave up.
Thank you for that. Over the past 2 hours, we have had students and adults share their thoughts about life in Ferguson, about life 50 years ago, about where they're going in their futures. Each of us has a responsibility to listen to what they have said to us today, but not just to listen, but to act. We are all responsible for the betterment of our communities, for the betterment of our children, to safeguard their futures. Each of us has a responsibility to vote, register to vote, and vote, every single one of us. If you are 18 years of age or older and you have not yet registered to vote, I don't care what state you're in, that is your homework from this activity. Find a library, find a post office, find somewhere, and get yourself registered to vote and participate in this upcoming election. It is so, so important. Let me pause and thank our panelists, of all of our panelists together. They have been wonderful for sharing their hearts with us. Thank you to the scores of you who are watching via satellite, internet, hookup, whatever it might be. We had listeners in Wisconsin, in Boston, Massachusetts, in California, in Denver, Colorado, in Tampa, several sites around Pennsylvania. Wow, we're so thankful that you're spending part of your day with us. Let me thank those that made this possible, Dr. Maria Sinelli and Dr. Luis Rodriguez at Kutztown University, the Frederick Douglass collaborative across the state of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. Also want to say a special thank you to the National Park Service for putting on this amazing journey for the students, and also to the National Association of Faith and Justice. Without all of you, it would not have been possible. I am not been on the journey, but I've learned so much. And whenever y'all schedule the next one, please call me. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of our day. The journey continues. The responsibility continues. The action must continue. This is Brian Johnson signing off from Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you so much for being with us.